আসসালামু আলাইকুম। ইরান যুদ্ধ শুরু হওয়ার পরে যদি আমি ব্যক্তিগতভাবে সবচাইতে বেশি কারো অ্যানালিস্ট শোনার আসলে অপেক্ষায় ছিলাম, তাহলে সে হইল সামি হামদি। এবং যদি কেউ ফিলিস্তিনি ইস্যু নিয়ে সজাগ থাকো এবং ওয়েস্টের কন্টেন্ট কনজিউম করো, দেন সামি হামদির থেকে বড় নাম আমার মনে হয় না বর্তমানে ওয়েস্টে সামি হামদির আশপাশের কোনো নাম আসে। যাক, আল্লাহ তাকে সুযোগ দিচ্ছে কাজ করার এবং যথেষ্ট পরিমাণ আসলে কাজ করতেছে আমেরিকাতে, কানাডায়, অস্ট্রেলিয়াতে। ইংলিশ স্পিকিং দুনিয়াতে তার থেকে বড় নাম এখন নাই, বাট সামহাও তার যে পলিটিক্যাল ব্রেইন, সে নিজেও একজন অ্যানালিস্ট, প্লাস তার কোরআন হাদিসের উপর গ্রিপ অনেক বেশি স্ট্রং। তুমি খুব রেয়ারলি এত কিছুর একটা মিশ্রণ কোন মানুষের ভিতরে আসলে খুঁজে পাও। যাই হোক, সুনামের বাহিরে সামি হামদি ভাই অনেক বেশি আসলে ত্যাগ দিছে লাস্ট ৩-৪ বছরে, এবং যত বেশি আসলে ওয়েস্টকে আসলে ভরসা দিচ্ছে, এবং সে খুবই পজিটিভ একজন মানুষ, অনেক বেশি মোটিভেশনাল টাইপের আসলে কথা বলে, যদিও তার ফিল্ড কিন্তু একদম অ্যাকচুয়াল মজার। তার যেই স্পেশালিটি এবং যার উপরে সে পিএইচডি করছে এবং তার ইনস্টিটিউট আছে, তা হইল ডিপ্লোমেসি ফিল্ডে। সে তোমার কোন দেশ, আরবের কোন দেশ সাথে কেমন সম্পর্ক করা উচিত, ওভারঅল এইসব বিষয়। সো সে কোনো ড্রিমি মানুষ না, মানে কোনো স্বপ্নের দুনিয়া থাকে না, বাট অ্যাকচুয়াল ফিল্ডের মানুষ হয়েও এত বেশি আসলে পজিটিভ কথা বলে, উইচ ইজ গুড। এবং আমাদের এই ধরনের ক্যাপাসিটির, এই ধরনের গ্রিপ বলা মানুষ বেশি প্রয়োজন মুসলিমদের, স্পেশালি যেখানে কেউ পলিটিক্স জানলে ওটার সাথে ইসলামের মিশ্রণ করতে পারে না, কেউ ইসলাম জানলে পলিটিক্সে তার গ্রিপ অনেক বেশি কম। সো আমি যখনই পলিটিক্স বুঝাইতেছি, ওটাকে আমি সেকুলারদের হাতে আসলে দেওয়ার কথা আসলে বলতেছি না। আমি বলছি এই যে দুইটা আসলে একটা মিশ্রণ হয় সুন্দর কইরা, এবং তুমি ওইটাকে আসলে বরণ করা শুরু করো, ওই অনুযায়ী অ্যাক্ট করা শুরু করো, এবং তুমি প্রত্যেকটা চান্সের ভিতরে তুমি ইসলামকে আসলে প্রাধান্য দাও, এবং প্রত্যেকটা জায়গায় ইসলামকে আসলে তুমি খোঁজার চেষ্টা করো। সো সামি হামদি ভাইয়ের যে বাবা, সে আলজেরিয়ার একজন পলিটিক্যাল পার্টির, বাট স্টিল সামি হামদি। এবং ইন্টারেস্টিং একটা ফ্যাক্ট হলো, সামি হামদি ভাইয়ের যে বাবা, সে আবার আলজেরিয়াতে আলী খানুল মুসলিমিনের অপোজিশনে আসলে সে থাকে, এবং তার উপরে অনেক বেশি এলিগেশন আছে যে সে খুব বেশি এন্টি ইখওয়ান টাইপের কাজ করে। বাট যখন তুমি সামি হামদি ভাইয়ের কথা শুনবা, তোমার প্রথম মনে হবে যে আলী খানের লোক, অথচ তার বাবার পুরো একটা প্রোফাইল আছে আলী খানের বিরুদ্ধে সে কাজ করে। ভালো মন্দ হচ্ছে বড় কথা হইলো, সে যেই বইতে আসলে প্রেজেন্টেশন দিতে পারে এবং যে সুন্দর আসলে কথা বলে, উইচ ইজ আমাদের এখন প্রচুর প্রয়োজন এই ধরনের লোক। সো আমি তোমাদের সামনে প্রেজেন্টেশন দিতে আসি সামি হামদি ভাইয়ের, এবং আমি আশা করি তোমাদের ভালো লাগবে এবং তুমি রেগুলার বেসে আসলে তার কথা শোনা শুরু করবা ইনশাআল্লাহ। সো শুরু করি। সামি হামদি ভাইয়ের কথা আসলে তোমরা শুনলে আসলে বুঝতে পারবা যে আমি কেন এত গুরুত্ব দিতেছি, কারণ সামহাও মুসলিমদের বেশিরভাগ মানুষ ওই ডেপথে আসলে যাওয়ার চেষ্টা করে না, যে ডেপথে আমাদের আসলে যাওয়া উচিত এবং আমাদের অনেক বেশি প্রয়োজন এখন।
Sami Hamdi, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back to the Thinking Muslim. Well, alhamdulillah, it's good to have you with us back here in London. We've been around the world, but alhamdulillah, it's good to be back in this city.
Alhamdulillah, city where missiles are falling.
Subhanallah. And that's really what I want to talk about today. This really brutal, horrifying attack on Iran. Subhanallah, the funeral of 185 school children took place yesterday. Girls, young girls who were buried under the rubble. It was a pretty shocking scene and a pretty shocking funeral to witness. By all accounts, confirmed by the Omani foreign minister, the Iranians were ready to comply with all of the nuclear demands, the enrichment demands of the United States on the eve of the attack on Saturday. Many ordinary Iranians are today suffering. Sami, I suppose my first question is how much longer can we tolerate such an abject, unjust, Western-centered world that cares so little for innocent lives?
I've thought about this question for a while. The idea that when it's Western governments and Western leaders, rightfully so, commemorate, mourn, grieve, hold marches. We've seen the sophistication that's involved in recognizing the dignity of the fallen Western citizen, if that's what we want to call it. We say that the Western government doesn't give value to those lives. And I agree with you. I'm not denying that whatsoever. But I'm saying that who is first who should be giving that value to those lives? Who is first that should be mourning and grieving and giving value and giving dignity to those lives? The first actually should be Muslim governments. Because my view is that if Muslim governments give that value, then by extension, everybody else will give that value because they understand how valuable it is when a Muslim or a Muslimah or any citizen, whether they're Christian, Jew or the like in the region, when they die, when they see that the local governments give value to those lives, then it follows that everybody else, when they see that from afar, they know that the custom and tradition and courtesy is they should give value to those lives. But your question implies, why don't they give value to those lives? And I agree with you on that question. That's perfectly fine. But maybe we should flip it on its head. When a Western government sees that a Muslim government doesn't give value to these lives, that a Muslim government doesn't give value to the ordinary sanctity and dignity of a human being. Here, I'm not talking about the Iranian regime to the girls. I'm talking about the regimes in the region, whether it's the likes of Egypt or beyond, when they see that these governments routinely are built on a foundation and on a basis whereby the citizen does not have dignity, but rather the citizen is a slave to an authoritarian system. By what logic do you expect a Westerner to turn up to a Muslim country, see the way the government treats that citizen, and then you demand from the Westerner to give the dignity that the own Muslim doesn't give to the other Muslim in that regard? The reason why I say this is the number of girls who were killed in Iran is a heartbreaking story. It's heartbreaking in terms of the girls that were bombed and killed. It's a trademark Israeli strike. It's a trademark American strike. It's a trademark Western army strike that we've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan and the like. But the protests coming out from where they should be coming out are not coming out. And that's why I argue that the first place in order to restore the dignity, if you want any dignity to be given by these Western governments, is we should also give it to ourselves. And people should also give it to those locals and those citizens in those countries as well. We see it even if we're really going to push it really hard. We see even, for example, in some Muslim states where other members of the Ummah are pretty much in de facto terms enslaved. We don't even give dignity to those within our own Ummah. We bring them in as workers. We bring them in as de facto slaves. We make them 20 people living in a flat. And in the rent, if they get into a car accident with a prince or the like, we deport the worker rather than give justice to the worker when it's the fault of the prince or the fault or whatnot. All of these injustices taking place, we work them from 5 a.m. in the morning until midnight, maybe even then 7 days a week. And then we tell them that they should be grateful because at least they're here and getting a salary and they make more money than they would make in Pakistan or Bangladesh or in these other places. In other words, we deny the very dignity to members of our Ummah when they come, while giving dignity to the Westerner when they come. And then we ask when the result of that cumulative treatment of those citizens is that nobody gives the proper respect to our sisters who were killed in that strike. That's not a way of me dodging the question. But it's the same answer I gave with regards to the Gaza genocide. When people said, why are you harsher on the Muslim rulers than you are on those who are supporting the genocide amongst the Western states? And I give the same answer here. Is the American government doing anything unusual or different in its support for the Israelis in their genocide? No, they have always supported the Israelis. The only reason Israel survives is because of American support. Israel has always provided military tanks. Its bases are used to protect the Israelis. America has always come to the rescue of the Israelis. Is Europe doing anything strange in the way that it supports the Israelis in Gaza? No. Europe continues to support them. Even in Bosnia, when Carl Bildt and these other Europeans came in and they were offering the ethnically cleansed areas to Mladic and the Chetniks and the fascist Serbs, Europe believed that was a good deal because they said, better we give it as a semi-autonomous region than hand it over to a potential Muslim majority, European majority, ethnic Europeans and the like. Europe has been doing this as recent as the 1990s. So what surprises you about their support with regards to the Israelis? There's nothing surprising in that regard. I would be more surprised if they changed overnight and suddenly supported the Palestinians. What shocks me is when the Muslim government that was supposed to support Gaza, the Muslim government that was supposed to look after the dignity of those girls who was killed, the Muslim government who's supposed to respect the rights of those citizens and provide some sort of defense, that Muslim government who used to support Gaza is now supporting the genocide. Again, you can see I'm not talking about Iran, I'm talking more broadly over here because it's the broad theme that led to us not talking much about this. It's the point that those Muslim governments have now got to a stage where they're supporting the genocide. So to restore the balance, I want the Muslim government to step up first before I ask that Western government to step up. I will ask the Western government. We do it here all the time. We write to our representatives. We write the heinous crime. For those who are watching this, for example, and haven't written to their local representatives to denounce it, I would ask you, why haven't you written? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the middle of the Arabian Peninsula, in the middle of the desert, writes letters to the Emperor of Rome, to the Emperor of Persia, and to the Patriarch of Egypt to tell them that they need to change their ways and they need to respect that La ilaha illallah, the Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. They need to uphold the rights of the neighbors, uphold the rights of the citizens. The audacity of a man, illiterate orphan in the middle of the desert, to write a letter to an emperor. Did anybody write a letter, even the basic of Iman, to the representatives, at least to acknowledge and say, these were my sisters who were killed? The reality is that we complain a lot about the Western government, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm not defending them in any way whatsoever, but rather I'm saying the reason why CNN and these others don't even give the basic courtesy for this death is because many Muslim, I'm not going to say we, because I'm not part of that. Many Muslim governments, they don't give that respect over there. I didn't expect the answer to be that long about it, but may Allah inshallah give them mercy, give them Jannah inshallah.
Amen.
And these innocents who were killed and all of the other Iranians under that bombardment and being bombed into oblivion by the Americans and Israelis.
When we trailed this program, some people who know your view about Iran's actions in the Middle East for the last 10, 20 years, they responded by saying, oh, it's Sami, he's going to be very negative towards Iran once again. I usually ask you for your analysis. I want to ask you about your feelings. How did you feel on Saturday when the Israelis and the Americans bombed Iran?
There is often an assumption that when you talk politics, it's like watching a stadium of two teams playing against each other. And that you are an ultras fan for one team, desperately supporting them against the other. And that no matter what your team does, you will always support your team. I think that is a very flawed way of looking at politics, and very much in the modern Western party system, how we've adopted it. I think there is an assumption that in political analysis, that everybody loves to be right. I'll tell you a story of somebody that we know, but I won't mention who it was, and nobody will figure out who it is. This friend of mine gave me an analysis of what he thinks will happen in Turkey in 2028 with regards to the succession and how Erdogan is going to deal with protecting his legacy, given that it's still, everybody's worried about what happens in 2028. Is it Bilal Erdogan? Is it Seljuk? Is it Berat al-Bayrak? Is it Hakan Fidan? Is it Ibrahim Kalin? So anyway, he came out with a very interesting theory, which I won't express at this moment in time because I don't want to offend anybody. So he's not somebody with enough clout or a background whereby I would say he's an analyst you rely on. But it was a sound argument, but I have nothing to measure it with. One day we're sitting together, we went into somebody's house of an analyst who I take his opinion very seriously. I think he's a genius of our times. We were sitting in Sarajevo, sitting together, and every now and then I like to go see him privately to bounce my own ideas off him and also to share our analyses together so we figure out what's happening. Yeah. So I had just come from Istanbul at the time, so he asked me, Sami, what did you hear in Istanbul? What's your take? So we start going back and forth. And then he gave me his view, which almost was identical to the view of this friend of mine. So this friend got so happy, even though the outlook was quite gloomy, he got so happy that he had got it right. He stood up and he went, I got it right. You know, like I got it right. And then we're looking at him and we're like, even if you're right, the scenario is not a good one. Why would you celebrate the situation getting worse? sometimes when you're talking, you get into this game like, what's my accuracy rating? Yes, did you see? You see somebody who'll tweet and he'll be like, I predicted this 1 year ago. But if you predicted something worse and you were right, why are you celebrating? Does that not break your heart? If you were somebody who said, yes, Iran is going to get bombed, and when it get bombed, you say, guys, see, I told you so. Those are people's lives being killed. No one takes pleasure in it that somebody is getting killed, that an innocent person who his entire life is a shopkeeper on the edge of a street in Tehran, who wakes up every day, opens a shop in the morning, goes and sells whatever they're selling, Kubi Day and the like, and then he goes home and he wakes up every day, opens it, maybe gives some charity to the local masjid or whatever, just he's not involved in politics. What crime did he commit so he should be killed? Why would I celebrate what's happening to the Iranians? Even if I acknowledge that Iran's crimes in Syria, in Iraq and Yemen, my hope is not that Iran gets destroyed, my hope is Iran just stops. My hope is not that Iran, for example, gets destroyed and blown into oblivion. It's, yeah, Iran, what you did, just stop what you're doing in Syria, stop what you're doing in Yemen. This is very different from saying, when you ask me how I feel, the reason it's such an offensive question, it implies that I would love to see Iran destroy or see Iranians get killed, that somehow I'm dancing and I take pride when those girls are being bombed in the school. That's not it at all. Everybody knows what I dream of and what everybody else dreams of. That we can go from Morocco all the way to Indonesia, visa-free travel. You go through the border because we're all one ummah, we're all one brother, we're all the same way you do in the EU and the like. The point of the analysis is not to say who is right or who is wrong or who is evil or who is good. The point of analysis, and this is the whole point of political analysis, is where can you identify the opportunities and agency whereby a scenario that's destined to get worse, you might intervene and make it better. The whole point of analysis, the whole point of your podcast, whether you realize it or not, is so that when the world says the Zionists control the world, we show they actually don't. They're actually losing public opinion in America. They're struggling to convince Trump. Netanyahu has to go 8-9 times to Washington to go and speak to Trump. Netanyahu is not as strong as you think he is. So the person listening says, oh, wait a minute. If they're not as strong as they think he is, what is it that's making the difference? Do I actually have agency? The point of analysis is, Ya ibadallah, the situation is not what you think it is. See it for what it actually is. See the confusion where Trump has no idea what to do in Iran. See the confusion where the Israelis have no idea what they want to do. They just want chaos in order to be able to take more land. See where the Saudis don't know whether they should join in with the Americans or whether they should lobby the Americans at the risk of incurring the wrath of the Israelis and getting the Americans to stop bombing Iran. See it from bin Zayed in UAE, who doesn't know what he prefers, Iran getting destroyed and supporting the Israelis, or having Abu Dhabi get bombed and that oasis of security, the image being blown out of the water, no pun intended, being blown out of the water, whereby now no one moves to the UAE anymore because they remember those missiles being bombing down. Bin Zayed doesn't know what to do. Bin Salman doesn't know what to do. Trump doesn't know what to do. Netanyahu doesn't know what to do. The point of political analysis is not to say, Iran, let Iran get bombed. It's to say, Iran, you know there's a way back for you. Iran, you know if you stopped with the sectarian killings in Syria and in Lebanon, you do know people would be willing to live side by side with you. Everybody says it's some sort of Sunnah Shia split or the like. It's not. It's an injustice that is perpetrated against a group of people where as a Muslim you say, Allahumma hadha munkar, this is something that is wrong. When bin Salman does it to a Sunni Salman al-Uda, you ask bin Salman, release the guy from prison. When Iran does it to its own Shia following, you say, Iran, stop doing this. Al-adlu asas al-mulk, wal-dhulmu mu'dharun bi kharab al-umran. Justice is the foundation of all dominion and oppression is what heralds. And it's actually interesting. I'll finish on this point so no one thinks that it's just a religiously motivated thing. I'm watching this Chinese drama called Growling Tiger, Roaring Dragon. It's about a civil war period in the 200 AD, real. It's based on a book called Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So in it, there's a character, the main character is Sima Yi. Sima Yi is known in Chinese history as a genius. Genius politician, genius general. But there's a scene in it where he has a city he's about to capture. And he knows if he conquers that city, even though he has a high position in government, the royal family won't like the glory he'll receive from it. They'll use him to take the city and then kill him later. So anyway, he has a debate with his son, where his son says, Dad, maybe we shouldn't take the city. If we take it, we'll be killed. Let's retreat now and tell the emperor that we couldn't take it. And he tells his son, and he says, listen, why do you keep doing it in a Machiavellian way? The right thing to do is to take the city and liberate these people. Let's go and take the city and go and do it and see what happens afterwards. The point here being is you have your political analysis, but you also have the what is good in this world. And I think the problem when you keep doing political analysis is that everything becomes like it's a game theory, matrix. It's, lobbying power. The reason the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was so extraordinary in what he did is because he could have taken what we would call pragmatic decisions today. And he did take some of them. But he gave you a vision of a greater hope where the world could look so different. My vision of the world is not one in which Iran doesn't exist. My vision of the world is one in which we live side by side without the flag of Fatima al-Zahra or Hussein al-Hussein being raised in Yarmouk or in Syria and slaughtering Syrian kids as a result of it. It's just a case of just stop it. So I'm very offended by the question, to put it quite frankly. I understand why you asked it, but I think that the one who posed the question or who asked you to pose the question, and I'm going to throw it back, the reason the question was posed was, in their world, they are supporting their team. In my world, we support the ummah, even if perhaps it is painful to accept certain realities.
Recently, I met a viewer who told me something that's
the backlash would have come to the US anyway. And so, in a way, they preempted Israeli unilateral action. So Israel forced the Americans into this conflict. I mean, that sounds extraordinary to me. I mean, how do you understand that power relationship then between the Israelis, Netanyahu on one hand, and the Trump administration on the other?
I think that Rubio said the quiet part out loud. I know everybody is calling it extraordinary, but I think it's extraordinary only insofar as Rubio has said what many people always believed, which is that when Netanyahu lobbied for a war in Iraq came very soon after. When Netanyahu lobbies for war in the region, America tends to go and intervene on behalf of the Israelis and they go and bomb. And before they would market it as we're going to bring in democracy, we're going to bring in freedoms, we're going to go liberate the people. I think this time Rubio said, listen, I'm not bothered with the PR stuff. Like, I'm not bothered with the propaganda stuff. You guys ask me, I'm going to ask you bluntly. Israel told us they were going to go bomb anyway. We knew Iran would respond by attacking us. So we thought, what the hell? Let's go bomb with the Israelis and go bomb Iran instead. I think that Rubio, who's looking for a presidential bid as well, and believes he can only do it through AIPAC and through the Israelis, I think that he is surprised by the reaction from the MAGA base as a result of that statement being made. Because now you have even Matt Walsh, who was sort of on the fence a little bit, coming out and saying, wait a minute, are you telling us that we have no material benefit in going into the war with Iran? We only did it as a result of the Israelis. You now have Marjorie Taylor Greene coming out and saying, this country is no longer Democrat Republican, this country is about America first versus Israel first. To answer your question directly about the power dynamics, I think the power dynamics were made abundantly clear when Biden was president, in the sense that Biden looked at a Democrat base which was overwhelmingly pro-Palestinian. Biden looked at a Democrat voter base that very clearly told him that we don't want to support this genocide. Biden looked at an uncommitted vote in Michigan, which was a big blow to him, where his chief of staff or one of his campaign managers came out, according to Reuters, on the night of the uncommitted vote and said, this is a big disaster for us. We need to seriously start listening. Biden looked at that base, heard the screams and cries of his base, met with the families of the Palestinians. Layla Haddad, who we know very well, went to see Blinken as well, and Blinken told them that this is going to get way worse before it gets better. They knew what their base wanted. They knew what the American interest was, and they still went with the Israeli interest, which is to go and commit genocide and help to facilitate the theft of land, the humanitarian corridor, to help with ethnic cleansing, humanitarian peer, to help send Marines in to help the Israelis when they were stuck in Gaza City. The point here that I'm saying is that Rubio didn't tell us anything new about the power dynamics. We always knew what those power dynamics were. What was extraordinary about what Rubio said is not only that he admitted it publicly, but look at the American reaction for the first time. The American reaction is not, we have to support the Israelis come what may because we support the Israelis and they're an important ally. The reaction is, wait a minute, we're letting US servicemen die for the Israelis. Why? Why are we giving all this money to Israelis? Why are we supporting the Israelis in that regard? The power dynamic suggests that Israel has this overarching influence over the US today, which led it into Iran. But I want to point to a couple of things that lead me to suggest that Israeli influence is cracking rapidly. First of all, you'll notice that the White House spokesman responded to Matt Walsh's tweet, suggesting that she's been ordered by Trump to respond to the growing rift in MAGA, in that Make America Great Again base, Trump's base, about the growing opposition to the Israelis, suggesting Trump is concerned about that base and has now deployed the White House spokesman to respond to Matt Walsh specifically, responding to the figures that are over there. Trump met with Tucker Carlson, who went to see him to tell him, please don't go to war with the Iranians. Trump meeting with Tucker Carlson after slating him online suggests that Trump is looking at his base and he's saying that, yes, I have the pro-Israel base, but I have a base that's increasingly anti-Israel. I could pay a heavy price for supporting the Israelis over here. Let me think about what to do over here. Tucker, come and speak to me. And he speaks to Tucker, and according to a New York Times report, he told him, listen, I understand what you're saying. I understand. He didn't tell him, shut up and stop talking about me. He goes, I understand what you're saying, but really, I have no choice. Not in a way where he's, maghluban ala amrih, which is like a saying which says when you have no say in anything whatsoever. But it shows that Trump is very wary about the debate that's taking place in his base. Netanyahu's interview yesterday, at the time of this recording at least, on Fox News, that's Trump saying to Netanyahu, listen, my base are really angry. And Netanyahu, the suggestion is that part of his convincing of Trump to embark on the attack on Iran is he pitched the idea that, one, it would be quick. It would be like a Maduro-esque experiment. We'll get rid of Khamenei, we'll do regime change. You can claim it as a hero, and we'll do such low casualties that everybody will say it's the greatest operation ever, and your people will celebrate you for it. Netanyahu going on Fox News, it's almost as if Netanyahu is saying, I need to make sure Trump feels like he's celebrated. So I need to go talk to his base. So Netanyahu goes on Fox News, and what does Trump tweet? Trump says, everybody tune in to Netanyahu's appearance on Fox News. It's Trump saying to his base, he sees them angry. He sees that they are concerned. He sees that they're turning on him. He sees that they're really angry with the Israel part. And he's telling Netanyahu, listen, you promised me that I'd benefit from this. You told me if I go in, my base would celebrate me. Go on Fox News now and go and tell them why we're doing this. Give the argument, because my arguments are falling on deaf ears. And Netanyahu, when you watch the interview, you can see him struggling, desperately trying to say, no, we're not controlling Trump. No, we're not pushing Trump to go and do it. The reason why I say this is the power dynamic used to be Israel says something, Biden jumps. Israel says something, Obama cedes. Israel says something, George Bush says how high. The point that I'm saying is that it appears that Trump may have ceded to Israel and gone with their plan with regards to Iran at Israel's behest, at Israel's pressure, at Israel's lobbying, at Netanyahu's hounding, 8-9 visits to Washington. But I'm still not sure if Donald Trump is entirely aligned with the Israelis in the way that previous presidents were, primarily because the narrative war that's taking place in MAGA and the push being made by the Israelis, desperately trying to convince MAGA that America has an interest in this, suggests that the Israelis themselves recognize they may have pushed it too far. And I'll finish what Tucker Carlson said, which was very interesting, even though I still find it quite extraordinary that people start quoting him quite often these days, given his history once upon a time. But in any case, it's like when you were saying earlier, how do you feel about Iran? When somebody flips, I welcome it. Tucker Carlson said, addressing the American population after meeting with Trump, that if we go to this war with Iran, it will be because the Israelis demanded it of us, not because we have an interest in it. And he said the reason the Israelis are pushing it is the Israelis believe this is the last chance they have to get America involved in a war of their choice, because the shift in public opinion has been so significant, with the Gallup polls now showing that a majority of Americans now, for the first time ever, now sympathize with the Palestinians more than they sympathize with the Israelis. Israel believes that the Congress that's coming after the midterms, where AIPAC is now a pariah, the Congress that's coming in the next election and the future Congress and future elections, when that public opinion now manifests electorally, Israel may no longer have the impact or the influence that it has today ever again. Donald Trump infamously or famously said that Israel used to control the Congress. I don't think they control the Congress anymore, indicating that even he's aware of that particular shift. When you ask me, what does that tell us about the power dynamics with regards to Israel and US today? Once upon a time, I would have said that Israel has almost complete influence over Washington. Hamad bin Jassim, the former Qatari Prime Minister in 2018, he told France 24, it's on YouTube, anybody can find it. If anybody's looking for it, it's Hamad bin Jassim, France 24. It's about November 2018. Hamad bin Jassim is asked, why does everybody want to normalize with the Israelis? And Hamad bin Jassim says, when you see anybody getting close to the Israelis, it's not because they like the Israelis. It's because they believe that Israel is the key to the Congress and the White House. That was the case in 2018. The power dynamics of today, despite the fact that America and Israel are both bombing Iran, in my opinion, is that Israel's influence is cracking so much that Donald Trump may have gone along with them this time in Iran, but the PR campaign that's taking place suggests that if Netanyahu cannot convince Trump that his base will celebrate him for it, Trump is very capable of turning around and saying, no, 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 enough, enough. And I think the way that Trump keeps changing from we want regime change to we had candidates to replace him, but we killed them by accident, to we're willing to work with the regime just under a different name. I think the way that Trump has there's no consistency in his statement indicates that Trump has said to the Israelis, make this work for me, but if you don't, because this is your war, this could be, and we're waiting to see what the ramifications are of that.
জি, তো আশা করি সামি হামদি ভাইয়ের কথা আসলে শুনছেন। সো যে বিষয়টা আসলে আমিও পাস্ট হয়তো কোনো লাইভে আসলে বলছি যে আমেরিকার যে নেক্সট জেনারেশন বিল্ড আপ হইতেছে এবং স্পেশালি যারা তোমার পলিটিক্সে আসলে খুব বেশি ইন্টারেস্ট রাখে, তুমি জানবা যে এন্টি ইসরায়েল যে সেন্টিমেন্ট ওটা অল টাইম হাই। এবং নিক ফুয়েন্টাস, ঠিক আছে, লাইক নিক ফুয়েন্টাস, দেন থমাস মেসি, দেন একটা মহিলার নাম বলো না তোমার, গ্লেক্সওয়েল মার্জারি, এরকম কোন একটা নাম, যাই হোক। সো এই ধরনের যারা তোমার পলিটিশিয়ান আছে এবং ইন জেনারেল জোরান মামদানি সহ যারা আমেরিকা ফার্স্ট মুভমেন্টে তোমার বেশি আসলে তোমার প্রায়োরিটি দেয় রাদার দেন তোমার ইসরায়েল ফার্স্টে। সো তুমি দেখবা যে ওই দিকে দিনকে দিন ভারী হইতেছে এবং যারা আমেরিকা ফার্স্টের মুভমেন্ট নিয়ে আসলে আসে এবং ডাইরেক্টলি হোক আর ইনডাইরেক্টলি হোক এন্টি ইসরায়েলের সেন্টিমেন্টকে আসলে জাগ্রত করতে পারে, তারাই রিসেন্টলি তোমার খুবই স্ট্রংলি সাপোর্ট পাইতেছে মাগা রাইট উইং মুভমেন্ট বা ইন জেনারেল পুরো আমেরিকাতে। সো আগামী ইলেকশনে 2028 সালের ইলেকশনে কি ওটা তো পরের বিষয়, বাট এটা তুমি ধরে রাখো যে যে কথাটা আসলে সামি হামদি ভাই আসলে বলতেছিল যে এটাই শেষ জেনারেশন বা শেষ তুমি বলতে পারো বিগ অপরচুনিটি যা গেইন করার তা গেইন করার। সো যদি এইবার কোনো কিছু গেইন না হয় দেন আমেরিকার চ্যাপ্টার অলমোস্ট তুমি বলতে পারো 80 থেকে 90% ডান। ঠিক আছে, কিছু তো সময় লাগবে ওটাকে আসলে ব্রেক করতে, কারণ এট দ্য এন্ড অফ দ্য ডে আমেরিকাতে হিউজ একটা যে মাঝহাব ইভাঞ্জেলিক্যাল খ্রিস্টান ধর্মের ওই মাঝহাবকে অলমোস্ট ক্যাপচার করছে। সো ওই মাঝহাব এত ইজিলি তো আসলে তোমার যাইতেছে না আনটিল আনলেস ওই মাঝহাবের ভিতর থেকে কোনো ক্লার্জি উঠে আসলে অন্য কোনো দিকে নিয়ে যায়। সো খুবই টাফ টাইম আসতেছে বোধ। আমি আসলে এই জিনিসগুলোকে ওইভাবে দেখি নাই, যখন সাইমন দিবার কথা শুনছি তখন আমি আসলে রিয়েলাইজ করছি যে এখানে আসলে অপরচুনিটি আছে। না হইলে তুমি চিন্তা করো আমেরিকাতে আসলে পলিটিক্সে কি হয় না হয় আমাদের কি যায় আসে, আমরা এটা মনে করি, বাট আমরা রিয়েলাইজ করি না যে আমেরিকা দুনিয়ার সবচেয়ে পাওয়ারফুল স্টেট এবং সুপার পাওয়ার। তোমার আমার ইকোনমির বিশাল বড় একটা অংশ তারা কন্ট্রোল করে। সো এবং মুসলিম বিশ্বে তারা যা করছে তোমার তোমার আমার চোখের সামনে এবং যা করতেছে এখন। সো যদি তুমি মনে করো যে তারা মুসলিমদের জন্য সামান্যতম ভালো কিছু হইতে পারে কোনো পলিসির মাধ্যমে এবং তোমার কোনো ওয়ে আছে ওইটাকে আসলে ইনফ্লুয়েন্স করার, দেন মুসলিমদের ওটাকে সেলিব্রেশন করা দরকার। ওই সেন্সে না যে আসলে আমেরিকা আসলে তোমাকে ছাড়তেছে, বাট ওই সেন্সে যে চলো অ্যাটলিস্ট এখন যা হইতেছে তার থেকে কিছুটা বেটার। বাট অ্যাট দ্য এন্ড অফ দ্য ডে আমি কিছু আসলে কথা বলে শেষ করি যে মুসলিমদের বন্ধু মুসলিমরা নিজেরাই, চায়না আমাদের বন্ধু না, কারণ দিন শেষে চায়না আমাদের সাথে যা হইতেছে এর সবচেয়ে বড় বেনিফিশিয়ারি কিন্তু চায়না। দেন রাশিয়া আমাদের বন্ধু না, রাশিয়ার ইতিহাস তুমি যদি বেসিক ইতিহাসও পড়ো বা ভিডিও কনজিউম করো তুমি আসলে বুঝতে পারবে যে রাশিয়া কতটা ব্রুটাল ছিল। ইউরোপিয়ানরা এবং আমেরিকার ভিতরে যদি তুমি আমাদেরকে সিলেক্ট করার কোনো বই তো অপশন দাও, অ্যাটলিস্ট যদি তোমার ইউরোপিয়ানদের সাথে ডাইরেক্ট কোনো কনফ্রন্টেশন আমরা নাই, রাশিয়ানদের সাথে আপাতত নাই, বাট চাইনিজরাও কিন্তু খুবই ভয়ঙ্কর লেভেলে তোমার অত্যাচার করতেছে মুসলিমদেরকে। সো তুমি যদি পিক করার আসলে সুযোগ দাও, আমি রাদার দেন বলবো যে আসলে পিক প্রেজেন্টে আসলে করতে পারো, বাট বড় শর্ট টাইম, বাট তোমার পাশাপাশি লং টার্ম স্ট্র্যাটেজি আসলে বিল্ড করতে হবে, মুসলিমদেরকে এম্পাওয়ারমেন্ট করতে হবে, কোনো একটা সেন্টার আসলে তৈরি করার চেষ্টা করতে হবে। ওইটা হোক মিলিটারি ওয়াইজ, ইকোনমিক ওয়াইজ, মানে কোনো আসলে উম্মাটিক ভিশন, উম্মাটিক স্ট্র্যাটেজি, উম্মাটিক প্রজেক্ট আসলে আমাদের দিতে হবে, এবং আমার লাইফের অনেক বড় একটা, তুমি বলতে পারো, খায়েশ বা ডিজায়ার, যে আমি আসলে ক্রুসেডের এগেনস্টে যখন মুসলিমরা সালাউদ্দিন আইয়ুবের মাধ্যমে আসলে জেরুজালেম জয় করার জন্য পুরো একটা জেনারেশন বিল্ড করছে, মুসলিম কোন দেশ আসলে তোমার মনে হয় যে আসলে এরকম কোনো প্রজেক্ট আসলে আছে? ইরান তাও কিছুটা আসলে করছে, বাট ওইখানেও তারা এত বেশি সেক্টেরিয়ান বইতে গেছে যে বাকি মুসলিমদেরকে তারা অলমোস্ট আসলে খারিজ করে দিচ্ছে, যে অংশীদারিত্ব তো তারা নেয়নি, মানে অংশীদারিত্ব হওয়ার মতো সুযোগও আসলে ছিল না, এবং তুমি আমি চাইলেও না আসলে ওই সেক্টেরিয়ান ভাইব আসলে ঢুকা সম্ভব ছিল না। বাট এছাড়া কোনো মুসলিম দেশ ওই প্রজেক্ট আসলে, বা উম্মাটিক কোনো ভীষণ উম্মাটিক কোনো প্রজেক্ট আছে কি? তুমি আসলে দেখো, তুমি প্রত্যেকটা ছোট 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 যেসব সংস্থা দেখবা, স্বপ্ন বড় হইতে পারে, কোনো সমস্যা নেই, বাট সামহাও ওইটাকে আসলে অ্যাকচুয়ালাইজেশনের দিকে নিয়ে যাওয়ার মতন যে ক্যাপাসিটি বিল্ড আপ করা প্রয়োজন, ওটা আসলে আমরা করতে পারি না, এটা আমাদের অনেক বড় ব্যর্থতা। বাট স্টিল ডিজায়ার আছে যে আমি চাই যে বাংলাদেশ, পাকিস্তান, ইন্দোনেশিয়া, যেসব বিগ কান্ট্রি এখন আছে, কারণ দিন শেষে মনে রাখবা যে তোমার শুধু পারপাস থাকলে হবে না, তুমি কাতারে বসে পারপাস দেখে কোনো লাভ নেই, কারণ কাতার ইন জেনারেল অনেক ছোট্ট একটা ভূখণ্ড, যেখানে মাত্র 10 লাখ তোমার কাতারই থাকে, আরব আমিরাত যে হবে না পপুলেশন ওয়াইজ। সো তোমার এমন দেশ সিলেক্ট করতে হবে, এমন জায়গায় তোমার প্রজেক্ট হেড কোয়ার্টার বসাইতে হবে, যেখানে তুমি তোমার লিটারেলি ওই জিনিসটাকে ম্যানিফেস্টেশন করার মতন পাওয়ার আসলে তুমি জেনারেট করতে পারবা। সো অনেক কিছু আছে। যাই হোক, আজকের জন্য এতটুকুই, এবং সামি আহমদি ভাইয়ের কোন কোন বিষয় আসলে তোমার ভালো লাগছে এবং আরো কিছু পার্ট আছে আসলে হয়তো আমি পরে রিয়াকশন দেবো, বাট এই অংশটুকু আসলে আমি আজকে রিয়াকশন দেওয়ার জন্য বসছি। তো আশা করি ভালো লাগছে। আসসালামু আলাইকুম ওয়া রাহমাতুল্লাহি ওয়া বারাকাতুহু।